sirens wailed over Las Vegas just before dawn, their echo bouncing off marble towers and neon lights. By sunrise, federal agents had already sealed the entrances to an underground casino hidden beneath a luxury hotel, once owned by one of the city's wealthiest developers. Cameras captured FBI teams hauling out armored crates, laptops, and shockingly NBA memorabilia. What began as a whispered rumor among gamblers had erupted into one of the largest sports corruption scandals in modern American history. But as the arrests multiplied across 11 states, the question tore through the nation's conscience. How deep does the collusion between organized crime and professional sports really go? The operation, now codenamed Nothing But Bet, exposed a sophisticated insider betting ring that used privileged NBA information, injury reports, player rotations, and internal strategy to cheat the multi-billion-dollar sports betting industry. Federal prosecutors revealed that high-profile players and coaches allegedly fed data to a web of intermediaries who then placed fraudulent bets worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. According to the U.S. Attorney's Office, the conspiracy stretched from Miami to Los Angeles, funneled through encrypted payment apps and offshore accounts. The FBI's Director Kash Patel, flanked by agents from Homeland Security Investigations and NYPD detectives, described the case as a direct strike at America's faith in fair competition. Yet the shock went beyond basketball. The indictments revealed coded messages exchanged minutes before tip-offs, rigged injury announcements, and deliberate load management decisions used to swing betting odds. Terry Rozier, then of the Miami Heat, allegedly tipped associates that he would fake an injury exit. Chauncey Billups, now head coach of Portland, was accused of leaking tanking plans that let gamblers predict his team's losses with surgical precision. Strategically, this scandal exposed the vulnerabilities of a system born from America's own digital transformation. Since the Supreme Court's 2018 ruling that legalized sports betting, the U.S. market has ballooned past $100 billion annually. Platforms like DraftKings and FanDuel turned fans into speculators, binding Wall Street's data obsession with Main Street's passion for the game. But the same technology that made sports betting accessible also made manipulation easier. Algorithms could process insider leaks faster than regulators could act. The global parallels are striking. In Ukraine, black market bookmakers linked to oligarch networks have used war zone instability to launder billions, just as America's own Mafia found new relevance in its digital casinos. In the Middle East, Israel's crackdown on illegal gambling networks tied to Iran's cyber units mirrors Washington's effort to dismantle its domestic corruption web. And in Asia, Beijing's shadow platforms operating under state protection blur the line between entertainment surveillance and control, raising the same fundamental question that haunts the American crisis: can technology designed for transparency ever stay free from exploitation? For Americans, this case hits where trust lives in the scoreboard, the handshake, the whistle's final blow. Parents who once told their kids that hard work wins now wonder whether every game hides a rigged line of code. The scandal challenges not only basketball's soul, but also the country's claim to moral authority over fairness and order. And as President Trump's administration vows sweeping reforms to regulate digital gambling and restore integrity to national sports, one truth lingers in the smoke of Las Vegas: if corruption can thrive under the bright lights of America's most beloved arena, what else has been hiding in plain sight? Under the shimmering chandeliers of Manhattan's elite clubs, a second storm brewed, one that made the insider betting ring look almost quaint. Operation Royal Flush exposed an underworld that blended the glamour of high-stakes poker with the precision of military-grade espionage. Federal indictments described poker tables embedded with X-ray scanners, modified Deckmate 2 shufflers transmitting live card data to remote handlers, and covert lenses disguised as designer eyewear. The setups were so advanced that even FBI tech analysts reportedly called them casino-grade spycraft. But beneath the velvet drapes and champagne bottles, there was blood money. The FBI alleged that the Bonanno Gambino, Genovese, and Lucchese families, four of New York's infamous five families, had built this network to bankroll their modern criminal empires. In the words of an investigator quoted by Reuters, it was an old crime reborn through silicon and software. The same names that once ruled Brooklyn's docks now ruled the poker tables of Miami, Vegas, and the Hamptons. The scam worked flawlessly. A quarterback seated at the table received live feeds from an off-site operator who analyzed every deck's order in real time. Silent hand gestures adjusted chips, or a subtle cough signaled which players to fold and which to raise. Victims, hedge fund executives, retired athletes, tech investors lost millions before realizing the trap was wired from beneath their fingertips. Federal prosecutors said the scheme stole at least $715 million, though the real figure may be far higher. Strategically, this operation marks the Mafia's full digital adaptation. According to The Guardian's analysis, the classic model of racketeering, gambling, dens, extortion, smuggling has merged with artificial intelligence, cryptocurrency, and encrypted communications. The Mafia no longer needs to control ports or unions. It now manipulates probability algorithms and human greed. This is organized crime's answer to the 21st century: invisible, fast, and ruthlessly efficient. The global analogies are chilling. In Ukraine, Russia-linked syndicates have exploited wartime chaos to build crypto laundering networks disguised as online casinos. Israeli intelligence has traced Iranian cyber cells using similar tools to fund proxy militias under the guise of gaming startups. And in China, underground baccarat networks allegedly tied to state-backed triads channel billions through digital wallets into offshore havens. In each case, technology turns traditional vice into a geopolitical weapon fusing crime capital and covert influence. In the American context, Operation Royal Flush is more than a scandal. It's a warning shot. When crime families can repurpose entertainment technology for surveillance and fraud, the line between gaming innovation and criminal infiltration evaporates. Law enforcement agencies now face adversaries that understand both psychology and code. As one DHS cybersecurity official told DW, they don't need guns anymore, just access. Yet beyond the technology lies something far more human: debt, fear, and silence. Victims who couldn't pay were beaten, threatened, or blackmailed. One 2023 incident in the Hamptons saw enforcers rob a player at gunpoint to seize a single rigged shuffler. Even among criminals, betrayal brewed. Devices were stolen, rival crews undercut each other, and digital evidence of greed began piling up in encrypted chats the FBI later decrypted. When the raids came on October 23rd, agents stormed casinos from Miami Beach to Atlantic City. Witnesses described the site as a scene from Goodfellas shot in 8K, poker chips scattered like shrapnel, and servers humming under tables blinked out for the last time. But beyond the flashing lights lies the question that haunts America's moral core. If organized crime can so easily hijack the technologies of trust, what happens when those same systems run the nation's economy, elections, or defense? For decades, New York's 5 families were thought to be relics of the past, characters confined to Netflix documentaries and fading courtroom sketches. Yet October 2025 proved otherwise. As the indictments dropped, the familiar names resurfaced like ghosts from another century: Bonanno Gambino, Genovese Lucchese. The Mafia, once weakened by the FBI's relentless RICO prosecutions, had evolved, not vanished. What investigators uncovered shocked even seasoned crime analysts. According to BBC News and Reuters, the 4 families had quietly forged a new business model, merging their traditional rackets loan, sharking gambling extortion with the digital infrastructure of modern finance. The poker schemes and insider betting rings weren't separate hustles. They were synchronized pipelines for laundering investment and influence. The Bonanno family allegedly managed logistics through New York's hospitality sector. The Genovese network handled money transfers through crypto exchanges in Malta and Cyprus. The Gambinos provided the muscle enforcing debts, silencing witnesses, protecting territory. And the Lucchese family experts in labor racketeering facilitated shell corporations to mass transactions as consulting fees. Behind these operations stood recognizable heirs to legendary names. Joseph Camarano Jr. of the Bonanno family, Angelo Jr. Ruggiero, son of John Gotti's notorious enforcer, Ernest Muscarella of the Genovese clan. All were charged with extortion, fraud, and racketeering. According to Al Jazeera, their internal communications referenced NBA rooms, a code term for the betting network, and the floor referring to the poker base in Lynbrook, New York, a coffee shop that doubled as a criminal hub. Strategically, this convergence marks a turning point in organized crime. Defense analysts have drawn parallels to hybrid warfare tactics, where state and non-state actors blend physical operations with digital influence. The FBI's counter-mafia task force now treats these syndicates like hostile cyber cells rather than old-school gangs. They no longer control neighborhoods, an FBI spokesperson told The Guardian. They control algorithms, debt chains, and data. The global picture mirrors this evolution. In Ukraine's war economy, networks resembling mafia cartels smuggle Western arms and launder funds through shell betting firms. In the Middle East, Iran's Revolutionary Guard has been accused by DW of operating gambling fronts that fund militias across Syria and Lebanon. Meanwhile, China's triads, deeply embedded in Hong Kong's financial systems, have rebranded themselves as digital gaming consultants, blurring lines between crime business and intelligence. In all of these cases, the motive is the same: control through systems of trust. Whether it's the integrity of sports or the credibility of currency, subversion of confidence becomes the ultimate weapon. America's sports betting scandal isn't just about basketball, it's a microcosm of a wider global struggle over who commands faith in the rules. But this renewed mafia presence also exposes the limits of law enforcement in the age of decentralization. Each family used encrypted apps, rotating SIM cards, and cryptocurrency wallets that vanished after every transaction. Even with the FBI's advanced blockchain tracing systems, billions in criminal revenue remain unaccounted for. They learned from Wall Street, a cybercrime investigator told Defense News. Diversify assets, disguise intent, delay detection. The human toll, though less visible, is equally grim. Victims face not just financial ruin, but real violence. Families threatened homes, burned debts, enforced with old-world brutality. For those who once believed organized crime had faded with John Gotti's imprisonment, the resurgence feels like history, repeating itself this time with an iPhone in every hand and a crypto wallet in every pocket. And now with the FBI promising to dismantle the modern mafia from the server up, one unsettling question looms: if America's most notorious criminal empires can survive every crackdown and adapt to every technology, will they ever truly die or merely rebrand for the next digital age? When the first names leaked from the sealed indictment, disbelief swept through the sports world. Chauncey Billups, Terry Rozier, Damon Jones, not fringe figures, but stars whose careers embodied discipline and respect for the game. Overnight, their reputations collapsed into a blur of subpoenas, encrypted texts, and whispered allegations. The NBA, a symbol of American soft power from Paris to Manila, was suddenly at the center of a criminal conspiracy. According to Reuters and The Guardian, federal prosecutors accused Billups of leaking internal team strategies, Rozier of manipulating his playing time for profit, and Jones of funneling privileged information about Lakers superstars LeBron James and Anthony Davis to outside bettors. These weren't small infractions. They were acts that compromised the very foundation of sport trust. Every whistle, every timeout, every substitution one investigator said became a financial instrument. The operation exploited one of the few remaining blind spots in the legalized betting system: timing. Hours before tip-off, team coaches and medical staff make critical lineup decisions minutes before those choices reach the public. Between that gap lay a window of pure profit. The conspirators used burner phones, private chat groups, and straw bettors to disguise the wagers. The scheme reportedly generated over $1 million in fraudulent winnings. Strategically, the impact extends beyond the NBA. This case exposes how information, once a tool for analysis, has become a currency of manipulation. In Washington, President Donald Trump's administration reportedly ordered a review of federal gambling statutes, arguing that data theft disguised as insider betting is national corruption, not just sports misconduct. The Justice Department is now exploring a Digital Integrity Act intended to regulate how real-time data flows between professional leagues and online sportsbooks. Globally, similar fractures are visible. In Ukraine, military supply leaks have been exploited for speculative trading, echoing how NBA data was weaponized for profit. In Israel, cyber investigators warn that Iranian intelligence has begun using esports and online gambling channels to finance covert operations. And in China, the Communist Party has tightened control over private betting apps, citing national stability, a move that Western observers view as both economic strategy and digital censorship. But within the United States, the scandal resonates as a moral crisis. Fans who once saw basketball as a sanctuary from politics and corruption now question the legitimacy of every performance. Young athletes dreaming of joining the league face a new, darker lesson that fame and data can be monetized more easily than talent. The culture of load management, originally a health strategy, now feels tainted, its credibility shattered. The betrayal also carries geopolitical weight. The NBA, long considered one of America's greatest cultural exports, stands as a soft power instrument, rivaling Hollywood and the tech industry. For decades, it projected American values of fairness, perseverance, and teamwork. But with headlines of mafia ties and insider fraud splashed across DW and Al Jazeera, adversarial nations now frame the scandal as proof of Western hypocrisy. Chinese state media has already labeled it a mirror of capitalist decay. Still beyond propaganda and prosecution, the human element lingers. For fans, this isn't just a sports story, it's personal. The childhood heroes they idolized now face the possibility of prison. Careers, reputations, and legacies hang on courtroom testimony. Billups's once inspirational story from finals MVP to respected coach now reads like a Shakespearean tragedy. Rozier, once known for resilience and flair, may be remembered instead for deceit. And so the question echoes across arenas and living rooms alike. If even the heroes of the game can be bought, how long before the entire system built on faith fandom and fairness collapses under the weight of its own greed? The raid itself unfolded with military precision. Before sunrise on October 23, 2025, FBI tactical teams moved simultaneously across 11 states. Agents in armored vests breached hidden poker rooms in Las Vegas, private suites in Miami, and a nondescript coffee shop in Long Island that masked a Mafia command post. Helicopters circled the Strip as Homeland Security's cyber division seized servers, transmitting encrypted gambling data in real time. It was the largest coordinated anti-fraud strike in American sports history, a show of force meant to reclaim public trust. Kash Patel, the FBI director appointed under President Donald Trump, addressed the nation hours later. This isn't just about gambling, he declared. It's about the protection of America's institutions, our economy, our culture, our integrity. Standing beside him were senior officials from the Department of Justice, the NYPD, and Italy's Anti-Mafia Directorate, whose cooperation had been vital in tracing crypto-laundered funds routed through Naples and Milan. The international footprint stunned observers, a digital trail linking New York mobsters' European shell companies and online sportsbooks registered in Curacao. Investigators had been quietly building the case for 3 years. According to Reuters, and defense news agents deployed a combination of human intelligence wiretaps and AI-driven data analytics capable of identifying betting anomalies across platforms. The algorithm flagged dozens of synchronized wagers placed seconds after internal NBA injury decisions were logged in team databases, a breakthrough that led directly to several arrests. Undercover operatives infiltrated rigged poker games, documenting the flow of marked cards, altered shufflers, and silent communication codes. Every move was recorded, every transaction traced. Strategically, this operation set a new precedent for how the United States confronts hybrid criminal threats. It blurred the line between financial crime, cyber warfare, and domestic security. Intelligence officers likened the scale to counterterrorism operations because the networks used the same encrypted apps and laundering mechanisms once traced to extremist groups. This was organized crime with the sophistication of a state actor, a DHS cybersecurity analyst told The Guardian. They weaponized trust itself. Globally, Washington's crackdown reverberated through similar ecosystems. In Europe, DW reported that German authorities opened parallel investigations into Bundesliga-linked betting anomalies. Israel, facing its own corruption probes tied to match fixing, announced a joint task force with the US to track transnational gambling flows that may overlap with Iranian cyber finance cells. Meanwhile, Beijing, keen to project stability, publicly denounced Western moral decay, even as its own triads intensified digital gambling exports across Southeast Asia. Yet, the victory came at a price. Over 30 suspects were arrested, dozens of assets frozen, and millions in luxury goods seized. But the digital infrastructure of fraud remains resilient. The technology X-ray poker tables, marked card lenses, crypto tumblers can reappear overnight on the dark web. Agents admit privately that for every operation dismantled, 2 more may rise abroad. The human dimension is harder to quantify. In interviews with Al Jazeera, families of the accused spoke of humiliation and fear. Children bullied at school homes, surrounded by media vans, careers ending overnight. Inside, the FBI morale soared, yet agents also faced a sobering reality. Dismantling the Mafia's digital empire would take years, not months. President Trump reportedly ordered an interagency review called Operation Integrity Shield, combining Treasury, Justice, and Defense assets to identify how foreign and domestic networks exploit U.S. entertainment industries for money laundering. The message was clear: corruption, even in games, is a national security threat. Still beneath the triumph of flashing badges and sealed evidence bags lies the deeper uncertainty if America must use counter-terror tools to safeguard its own sports. How blurred has the line between freedom and surveillance already become? In the days following the raids, the shockwaves extended far beyond courtrooms. Sports networks replayed footage of the arrests as commentators struggled to reconcile the spectacle with the soul of American sport. The NBA's brand worth billions across continents now faced its gravest crisis since the league's founding. Commissioner Adam Silver, under immense pressure, suspended multiple staff and ordered an internal ethics review, but to many the damage was already done. The league that had symbolized meritocracy and modern America's diversity now stood accused of complicity negligence or worse, blindness. Federal prosecutors press forward. Court filings revealed encrypted conversations between defendants, cryptocurrency transfers linked to European accounts, and messages in which players allegedly discussed manipulating lineups for the family. Legal experts told The Guardian the evidence was devastatingly complete. Trials are set to begin in early 2026, with the Justice Department seeking maximum sentences under the RICO Act. Strategically, the fallout has begun reshaping policy. The Trump administration's Integrity Shield directive now proposes tighter regulation of sports betting platforms, mandatory federal oversight of athlete data, and advanced algorithmic audits for game anomalies. The administration argues that America's prestige, its cultural dominance through sports, requires the same protection as its borders and digital infrastructure. Fair play is national security, declared White House spokesperson Sarah Sanders at a press briefing. The global ramifications are equally vast. In Europe, regulators are pushing for transnational gambling treaties modeled after anti-money laundering frameworks used against Russian oligarchs. Israel and the UAE, where sports investment has become a diplomatic tool, announced they would audit all betting partnerships linked to Western leagues. And in Beijing, Chinese state media seized on the crisis to argue that Western democracy breeds moral weakness, a pointed jab at Washington's soft power diplomacy. But beyond politics and power, plays this scandal forces America to confront a deeper paradox: how to preserve freedom in systems increasingly driven by profit and surveillance. The same digital transparency that promised fairness in gambling and sport also enabled manipulation on a massive scale. The very technology that allowed fans to engage more deeply made them participants in a grand illusion. The human cost runs deep. For fans, betrayal replaced loyalty. For honest athletes, every missed shot now draws suspicion. For families of the accused, once proud careers have dissolved into public shame. And for America's institutions, from the FBI to the NBA, the challenge lies not just in punishment, but in rebuilding faith. As DW observed in its post-raid analysis, every democracy must ask itself whether it can protect its symbols of integrity from its own citizens' greed. For the United States, basketball was more than a game, it was a global language of excellence, unity, and resilience. That language has now been corrupted by whispers of collusion and cash. The coming trials will decide the fate of men and the legacy of institutions, but the broader struggle transcends the courtroom. It asks whether a nation built on openness can survive the consequences of total transparency. And as the next season tips off, under the watchful eyes of regulators, gamblers, and fans alike, one question remains: when the scoreboards light up again, will anyone truly believe what they see? The FBI's sweeping 2025 operation against Mafia-linked NBA corruption exposed a vast criminal network intertwining insider sports betting and rigged poker games across 11 U.S. states. Codenamed Operation Nothing But Bet and Operation Royal Flush, the probe revealed how players, coaches, and Mafia families exploited confidential NBA data and advanced cheating technology to steal tens of millions of dollars. The scandal implicated icons like Chauncey Billups and Terry Rozier, shaking global confidence in America's sports integrity. Coordinated under President Donald Trump's administration, the raids involved the FBI Homeland Security and Italy's anti-mafia task force using AI surveillance and international financial tracing. The fallout now fuels global debates over digital ethics, freedom, and national prestige. Allies tighten betting laws. Adversaries weaponize the scandal for propaganda. At stake is not only the future of professional basketball, but also America's moral authority in the digital age. Because if the world's most visible game can be corrupted in plain sight, what else hidden beneath the glow of global entertainment remains rigged?